Welcome to Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Hi everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Today, we fly around the universe. We look at different belief systems, but today I have Jiulio Consiglio. Love that name. And we're going to kind of be talking about his newest book that is coming out in March 2025 about your inner healer. So before I bring Jiulio on, let me tell you just a little bit about who he is. So Jiulio Consiglio is coming to us from Ontario, Canada, and he is a spiritual leader and an author, and this I love, who focuses on transformative power of inner stillness, the mind, body, spirit connection, as well as psychic abilities development. So his message is that there is life beyond fear and incessant thinking. We need to hear this, people. We need to hear about a life beyond fear and incessant thinking, and it is found in the dimension of the inner stillness. But Jiulio, say hello to the audience.
Hello, everyone. And I just wanted to thank you, Granddaughter Crow, for having me on your podcast. Absolute pleasure and honor to be here today with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I have been doing research on what you do and really what it's led me, and digging into the book, which we'll talk about. But really, what it's led from me is this like higher self thinking around going within and connecting to this in that inner stillness. So I have a little story to tell you. I just recently went through, we'll call it a trial. I got a little ill and it lasted for longer than I wanted it to. And so, in that time of pain, I felt like I got dug out and raw. And then all of a sudden, I had this enlightened moment where I even a deeper level understood the connection between us all, and that we are all one, and that there is this beautiful thing. And I've always known this, but it hit me on a different dimension. And I really started going, go within, pause, be quiet, don't react. So that's what I just went through. And all of this, and it just kind of all came a little bit more clear through being sick. And then I get your book about your inner healer, and now I'm like figuring out how to rebalance myself and all of that. So I thought it was really apropos that I just went through that. What are your thoughts on going through difficult times in order to find enlightenment?
I've always found actually that adversity always leads to an expansion of consciousness. And oftentimes, when we're in the middle of the storm, we can't see the perfection of it. So there's this natural human conditioned response, which is really just reaction, and it's really non acceptance. So I have always found whatever challenge or adversity was brought forth to me, before my shift in consciousness, I would find it difficult to find the perfection in it, and they always led me to really create this burning desire for answers. So they lead us, and once we're on the other side, we can sort of look back and with greater clarity. But oftentimes we can't really see the perfection when we're going through it. But they do serve a purpose. Ultimately, it's to lead us back to ourselves and into the peace, clarity, wisdom, understanding of inner stillness. So those are sort of stepping stones that assist us in our ascension in consciousness.
Love that. And I also really love that that we're going to be talking about that inner stillness and maybe the subtle bodies and that type of a thing. The thing that I love about it, Jiulio, is this: a lot of times certain religions or belief systems will tell us you need to go outside of yourself and deny yourself. And I always go, wow, but Creator created me. That doesn't make sense. Why would He create something that shouldn't, be good? And so, what I love about what you're doing is, yeah, you can go out, there's UFOs, there's all of this beauty, there is, all of this phenomenon that's going on around us spiritually. But let's talk a little bit more about going within. What is inner stillness?
I actually love how you led that with the initial teachings, for example, with religion. So I have absolutely no problem with religion, but I always had this inner desire for direct experience. So to me, I see it as theory and a stepping stone. It's actually necessary. It gives us an idea, gives us concepts that there's something greater than us, something more vast. But inner stillness, when I consciously awakened to the dimension of inner stillness, which is really a silent mind, and it's the realization of one's inner being, which is transcendent of the thinking mind. The funny thing is, as far back as I can remember, even as a child working in my dad's hardware store, 7, 8 years old, my mind was always silent, but I never recognized it. And leading up to my shift in consciousness, I used to work in the dental field, and I would come into really profound, long spaces of stillness, so no mind. And I would begin to realize I'm not suffering because anytime I got out of the present moment and experienced the past or future, there was great suffering relative to the silence that was already there. And that silence is already within us. So, inner stillness is a moment by moment, breath by breath process of having awareness of the awareness of stillness, the unchanging, unaltered, formless essence of who we are beyond physical body and beyond the thinking or conditioned mind. The potentials within stillness and what's experienced, bliss, clarity, wisdom, understanding, teeming with psychic abilities and inspiration. So that's just a glimpse into the dimension of inner stillness.
I love that. I love that. And I have to agree with you that I find that theology and religion is like stepping stones to help us to get to wherever it is. There's many paths to spirit, and which is why we have belief, being, and beyond, because we look at all of these different paths. But I love this idea of what we are, and this, what I would say is consciousness. And on that level of inner stillness, of being aware, I have experienced that. I experienced it one time, I think I was 25, and all of a sudden I just sat down and I visualized. I took myself through a meditation that I just created, and I visualized myself going into this like almost monk temple. And I would go through the doors and I would be mindful about walking down into the temple, which was circular. And there was just a light there. And I would just stare at that light. And it just went, doo, it was just, everything was fine. And then if a question came into my mind, the answer simultaneously came into my mind.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what you're talking about. Is that kind of,
You're getting there because what you're explaining is simply focus. So people get really bogged down. Meditation, I can't meditate. Meditation is simply focus. So I often refer to just look at the stillness of a plant and then allow that stillness to be reflected within you because all of life is a mirror. So you doing that, that sort of shifted you into just a transcendent version that already exists within you, that 5D or spiritual still self. So that's actually quite beautiful.
love that. I absolutely love that. And also, people, Giulio Consiglio's Your Inner Healer book is coming out in March 2025. If you're watching this after March, it's available, but it is actually available for pre-order right now at llewellyn.com and Amazon. Or if you want to support your local metaphysical or book shops, which I love, go in, let them know that you would like a copy of this book, and they can pre-order it. And then you can not only support the author, but you can also support your local bookstore or pick up this book, because in this book, there are numerous exercises, explanations, meditations, tips, tricks, whatever it is, to find out what we're talking about here. So, when you talk about define subtle body, like what does that mean?
So the subtle body is the intermediary between the formlessness of the soul and the physical body, what marries the two. It is powered by the divine intelligence of the soul. So from one point of view, there really is no difference because they're all connected. So the subtle body is our inner healer. So if we cut ourselves, we don't have to think, I have a cut on my hand, heal, heal. It happens automatically. And the subtle body has divine wisdom, guidance. It knows how to bring us back into balance, but we need to, number one, become aware of it through the present moment. And number two, realize it's always communicating to us through vibration, energetic hits, nudges, and becoming aware of that and aware of that communication that's being divinely inspired, we can tune into it and then experience greater health and extraordinary peace, clarity, and things like that.
Love it. So, just a little bit more about your personal story, just so that the audience understands what you went through in order to find all of this consciousness. Can you?
Very happy to. So, between the ages of 19 and 33, I experienced some pretty profound and intense anxiety and the depression that comes with it. I never let it stop me from doing anything. I went to school in the United States, got educated, and I remember saying to my family doctor, who I adored, he was a great guy, he has since passed away. I said, Doc, I have more courage in my pinky than all my friends combined. I'm not sure why I feel this way. So basically, I was very sensitive to my energies and the energies around me. So years went on, and I continued to suffer in silence. As I was graduating from my dental hygiene program, my older and my one and only brother was diagnosed with cancer. So that had a profound impact on me, a massive one. And it really started to really create, because he never smoked, he never drank. I wanted answers. A couple of years went on, married my high school sweetheart, only to see that crumble about 15 months, almost 2 years in. Now, you would think that would have created enough sort of pain or intensity. Wasn't quite source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, wasn't done with me yet.
Yeah.
The year after that marriage crumbled, I was given a cancer diagnosis. Now, at this point, my attention was really sort of perked up and I really wanted answers. So I had been reading a book by Dr. Daniel Amen, of all names, Amen. Change your brain, change your life. And I don't think I got past page 60 or 62. There was a phrase that went along the lines, when you allow negative thoughts to go unchallenged. Well, that struck me. So on this particular day, November 7th, 2005, I had a patient cancel. And I did what I normally do, jump in my car, just drive a few blocks and just decompress. A lot of times patients come into the office, they're nervous and there's some fear. So I had the book on the passenger seat of my car. And in this afternoon, I began to reflect on that phrase. And the instant I reflected, not a male, not a female voice came audibly up through my chest and said, challenge your thoughts. And in that instant, the space between my eyebrows began to vibrate intensely. It began automatically shutting down every negative thought and the darkness that I had been enduring for those 14 years. Believe it or not, I still had a patient to get back to, and I have this activated force. And I should mention this. I remember clearly turning my head as this was being activated and just experiencing profound clarity. And that was just stillness coming to the forefront of my consciousness. I finished the patient, and now it's really raining hard. And I'm driving home. It's about a 30-minute drive, and I still have this activated force going off. I get home, jump on the couch, and I literally cried out, just let me die. And in that instant, I popped out. And when I popped out, what I mean is my awareness left, my consciousness left. And when I returned, I was light as a feather, and I knew exactly what had happened. I had completely shed or experienced what they describe as ego death, or dying before you die. Within weeks, I began automatic writing. Within a month, held my first talk on stillness, and wrote my first book just before Christmas over a 7-day period. I was writing about 12 hours a day, Challenge Your Thoughts, and that was my first book. And from there, went on to teach. And during that time, there was about a 33-day period. I was experiencing mystical events and visions and things like that were just reminding me of who I am. So that's sort of, in a few minutes, what I endured and what I went through to awaken to stillness.
Love that. I honor you for that. I practice a lot of shamanism, that type of a thing. And what, in my terminology, you went through the shamanistic death and you came out medicine person, one who carries the medicine of, I guess, yeah, dying to the ego or dying to the thoughts. And I'd love to point out individuals that thoughts are here and we can observe them, and in such take it to the next level that Giulio is saying, and saying, challenge that. Like, is it true? Is what you're thinking true? And what I love is that you're kind of giving us permission to not become our thoughts. One, I am not my thoughts. Two, I can sit back and observe them and challenge them. So when you talk about challenging your thoughts, I kind of reflect back on what you had gone through with depression and anxiety, and I think that I'd like to take just a little bit of time to talk about that because I'm I talk to a lot of people, and I think that those are two very relevant terms that people are starting to experience at the beginning of 2025, with which direction is the world going to go, and a lot of tension. Um, Challenge your thoughts. What does that look like, and how do we do that when we're talking about anxiety and depression and fear? What Give us an example of how we can do that, like right here.
I love this topic. So really, to bring clarity to anxiety and depression, anxiety is projection into the future. It's believing in the uncertainty, believing in the mind constructs of the future. Sometimes they come with excitement, but for the most part, worry, uncertainty, anxiety. The past, depression, sadness, regret, guilt. So those negative emotions, and sometimes even the ego sneaking in the back door, reflecting on better times. So the ego's role in our awakening process is to devalue the present moment, to have us forget the present moment. So for example, a lot of people, especially with the chaos and the unfolding of consciousness that's taking place in the outside world, number one, it's reminding us to go back within to the centeredness and safety of stillness in the present moment. But to understand how to challenge a negative thought, for example, many people, when they look at circumstances and see them as concrete, really they're only mind constructs. It's our perception of them. We will feel stuck, or just experiencing the bouncing nature, the back and forth of past and future. I feel stuck. And I used to say that. I feel stuck. I just want to get unstuck. So, number one, to get unstuck, for example, is to remember the present moment and be mindful of it. And even if you have to put reminders, for example, on a fridge, at your desk, and just write something like, the present moment is all there ever is, just to remind you. Even if you reflect, The past always arrived in the present, and the future never arrives. It always unfolds in the present moment. So, to challenge negative thought, if you have that feeling that I'm stuck, you don't even have to get specific. You can literally meet it with, I am already moving forward. And notice I'm using the words I am, not I will be, I am. Or a negative thought that, for example, attacks your health, or I'm always getting sick. That's the ego, that cassette player, that recording that's just going off. So you can become an observer and say, I am experiencing extraordinary health now.
Love
And you want to get to a point where you not just sort of believe it, you're not just sort of saying it. You've got to cultivate this to a point where you're saying it as knowing, is quite a matter of fact. So everything is a mirror. All of life is a mirror. When we realize that we're really not victims, but we're actually manifestors of our lives, whether we're conscious or unconscious, source doesn't decide for us. But the suffering and the negativity, and for example, the feeling stuck, all serve that divine purpose. It shows us what's not working and realizing we have a choice. We can choose differently.
So if you're enjoying the Belief Being and Beyond podcast and would like to support it, I'm on Patreon. Just go to Patreon, Granddaughter Crow, or you can find it at granddaughtercrow.com. Thank you so
Differently.
much. I love that because it's one, it's just beautiful about that mindfulness and that being present and observing things from that instead of the projection of the past and the future and all of that. I love that. So, what you're kind of talking about kind of talks a little bit about that manifestation. And can you kind of go into the manifestation of the I am and and what does that look like in action? And what do you have to say about actually being in that manifestation, that stillness, that present moment, all of that?
I love this question. So, really, we're not creating anything. We're simply becoming aware. We're bringing awareness to the I am within us. So, the source, whatever you want to call it, is eternally present, is within everything. And I can give a perfect example. You can't get angry at anything or anyone without instantly experiencing the anger within you because we're all one. Stillness is what connects us. It's actually been described as universal consciousness, cosmic consciousness. It connects us with this life and everything beyond this life. So you're simply bringing awareness back to the self, to stillness. And when you recognize, for example, a doorway would be becoming aware of the space between one's thoughts. That's where the silence is. It's not being created, it's already present, unchanging, all encompassing. So it's becoming aware. So taking a few minutes, even a day, and just becoming quiet, bringing awareness, attention within. I had mentioned bringing attention, awareness on a plant, and just becoming aware of the stillness. It's formlessness, so it's nothingness, but there's so much potential in that formlessness, even spontaneous healing, that in becoming aware of it, we can make profound. There's no time in stillness. It's transcendent. So things happening extraordinarily quickly. Whatever it is you're putting on, and you're being divinely guided. So there's really no interference, and the clarity that comes through that. So the key is present moment awareness, and realizing, the moment we realize that there's a level of awareness beyond the thinking mind, we now shift from potential to possibility of it unfolding within us.
I absolutely love that. Listeners, if you are enjoying this conversation and you want more, not only can you pick up this book that's coming out in March 2025, but you can also go to www.jiulioconsiglio.com. Let me spell that because it's unique. So, Jiulio, Jiulio, Consiglio. Consiglio. I mean, come on, it rhymes. It just, like that could be a wrap, but that's for another podcast.
I love that.
But in on the website, you can look at the books. You have a lot of teachings and things. Can you kind of just give us a little bit more about what you offer?
Absolutely. So I offer teachings, individual, and I do groups in mastery, in awakening, just to sort of accelerate ones. The important thing to mention is I can offer, I can't give someone enlightenment. I can only point them inwards. But in becoming aware of potentials within us, we give life to them and we can make massive shifts or become unstuck or have better relationships, discover the secrets to extraordinary health. So I offer teachings in things like that and psychic abilities development, for example. The important thing about psychic abilities is just as we are extensions of source and have a consciousness of our own, our psychic abilities too have a consciousness of their own, and they have a desire to express to us and through us and to assist us in manifesting and living a fulfilled life. So when you begin to really realize who you truly are beyond the thinking mind, and you realize the supporting and ascending energies found in the present moment, because to really understand the potential and the power, the transformative power in the present moment, you begin to have a glimpse of what's in there and what we can evolve or shift to become.
Wow, that's a mouthful. So, what I think is beautiful, and let me kind of just outline what we're talking about. I love that you said I can't enlighten you, but I can point the direction. I love that because I like to say the greatest teacher is within you because that's where wisdom solidifies itself. But I also love this idea of the ego, removing it, and how being in the present, and how how to be in the subtle body, this subtle body, which I love how you explained it. Like, I'm not sitting here going, okay, grow fingernails, grow hair. It's just doing it on its
Yeah.
own. It's as a
So
consciousness.
we've already come
And
complete, whole, fully equipped, but we have forgotten. We have forgotten because of identifying with physical body, identifying with ego. So we have all these abilities, and also, awakening to stillness. We then can tune into guides, spirit guides, and I've experienced them in subtle ways. I've experienced them in very energetic, almost manifesting in front of me, letting me know there's something up ahead, become aware. I've walked into situations and I literally knew everything before I walked in there. And that's within us. And just sort of a background, I used to arrest shoplifters in high school, and with about 99.9% accuracy, I pretty much knew who was going to be doing what. So all of these potentials are there when we're tuned into the stillness. So the psychic abilities, all of those potentials, whatever you can sort of imagine and beyond, are available to us. And this is how powerful we are. This is so important. I'm glad I'm remembering this. What we become aware of is what we give life to. That's how powerful we are. So just as we gave life and awareness to the ego and we gave it a life, but what it's done over time is hijacked our consciousness. So we really need to understand what the ego is relative to us and then integrate it. When I say integrate it, I describe stillness. If we look at the atom, we have the proton, neutron, electron. Proton is our positive conscious self, the you and me that are aware of our surroundings. Electron, negativity, the ego. And then we have the neutron, stillness, the center. At the moment of one's awakening, the vibrational frequency gets so high, the ego is cast out, but now it's left orbiting one's consciousness. Now you're in balance. And in that, and what happens is the ego, what was once source of our suffering, becomes a reminder to reawaken and reawaken. So enlightenment is not just a one-time experience. It's a moment by moment process of ego deaths. But it's in that stillness, in that present moment, that all these psychic abilities and all these potentials that are wanting to assist us and come to life are available.
Hey, you're blowing my mind. I love that example of the atom. And in this book also people, he does share with us about all of this and more, about how to balance the ego and all of that. And I really appreciate that. There's so much that we can go into. I think one of the biggest, brightest things that is illuminating me right now is this idea that we know, we forgot, we bought into the ego self and to the mind, and now all we have to do is not reach for healing, but realize healing. Am I getting this?
That's exactly it. So it's a process, or enlightenment is a destructive process. Now it's just a matter of subtraction, letting go of what's no longer serving us, letting go of the energies, the limiting beliefs, letting those die. When I say, so I talk about ego death in the book, I'm talking about energetically, because there's this preconceived notion, there's this fear of death. But when we understand death is a doorway, it's transformation, it's letting go, it's letting things die energetically. When we do that, we literally, if we practice that, and this is the path of mastery, is letting things die moment by moment, we are quite literally reborn energetically, renewed, because the body is what follows the mind. So if I'm renewed and I'm strengthened and I'm tapping into the invulnerability of my inner being, my physical body is going to reflect that. And it's a knowing.
I love that. And I love that it's a knowing as well. You know, I just want to ask you one last big question, and it might lead us on to another 15 minutes, but this, I want you to talk a little bit more about the constructs of our thinking mind that we project into the future and then get anxiety and fear around, and how we just continuously will go in that loop and create and awaken the consciousness of the negativity versus resetting and finding out that there is a higher consciousness of moving in and around our future, our life. I mean, that was a mouthful, that was a big thought, but it really is about the projection, and I guess we're kind of reviewing a little bit, but because I have another book coming out in 2026 about the internal narrative, where it comes from, and how we continue to live that internal narrative until we recognize it and challenge it. So, I mean, we're really two peas in a pod right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, talk a little bit more about that internal narrative, that thinking mind, and that projection and reactivity of future manifestation.
I love this question because if we don't do the shadow work, if we don't face the negativity and recognize it, it's sort of like, burying something, that's still alive. It'll keep knocking on the door until we face it, realize what it is, release it, forgive it if necessary. So as children, we are energetic sponges because our minds are unguarded, because the third eye isn't fully activated and open. So we take on our physical form. We think we're human beings. We pick up limiting beliefs from people that are actually well meaning. So our parents, loved ones, teachers. And we look at the outside world and we think this is how things are. So we end up from the one originating belief that we're separate from source branches every single other limiting belief, because we don't realize, by believing in the negativity, by believing in this limitation, we are manifesting, regardless, our future, our destiny, moment by moment. So if we realize how powerful we are to make these shifts within that are then reflected outward, change won't come, especially if we're comfortable, even comfortable in our pain, because it's sort of a familiar pain. So we accumulate these emotions, we accumulate these negative energies, and it ends up sort of manifesting almost like a pain entity. It almost becomes this possessive, sort of energetic version of us that's not really us. But because we've identified with it, and because we have learned as human beings to react to the outside world, we've perpetuated it. And that's what fuels suffering, reaction. So the key, especially if one is suffering or wants to get unstuck, is to shift what you said earlier to the observer. Observe the automatic negative thought. Once you begin to observe, you're creating that space, and it's within that space that you can actually begin to starve fear, starve the anxiety, starve the depression, the sadness, even the, for example, the triggers or the traumas that actually sponsor the triggers. You know, I can never say to someone, you know, you need to heal or you're never going to get over with that. One has to be ready. But if one is ready, one can face whatever keeps reappearing in the mind and see it for what it is, forgive it, release it. And it can get to a point where even if something was so much the source of one's suffering that it literally, and I promise this, if it's put into practice, will become a whisper to reawaken again. Because what happens is we've given so much momentum to the ego and created so much reality to it that the shift is now to starve it. And as it becomes destructive, and it becomes sort of this inner sort of not turmoil, but this inner sort of crumbling taking place. But as that's taking place, your true self begins emerging, and you begin to tap into who you truly are. The soul is always there to remind us. The greatest teacher, I always say, is within. And it has reminded me of who I am and what I'm not. Which right now, you know, people looking at the outside world and think this is going to hell in a handbasket. But from the clarity of inner stillness, one is realizing there's a massive shift and a massive awakening taking place. And stillness reminds me to observe the outer world. And how do we do that? By observing the inner world, because the two are actually one. There is no separation. So cultivate the inner world, cultivate inner peace by embodying it. How do we do that? Start by becoming quite aware of the present moment, looking at things that keep coming up and choosing to forgive and release, because the ascension is within. It's ascending beyond the lower chakras into the higher chakras, into the heart, into the throat, the third eye, which has the full power and potential because it is the doorway to unconditional love, stillness, to silence the thinking mind. And then, so what happens is you're then operating through clarity, wisdom, understanding. You're being divinely guided virtually in every affair of your life. That is, in all stillness. So every moment becomes sacred. Every moment becomes a gift, and it becomes a potential and an opportunity to reawaken, move forward. So everything is always not just a one-time thing. It's mindfulness is a cultivation. So all that negativity we experience, all that suffering serves a purpose, and it's to awaken and ascend. I hope I've answered that.
Oh, absolutely. Go to www.jiulioconsiglio.com. This is just a little taste of the consciousness that we need to remember. What I really enjoyed about what one thing that I really enjoyed about what you said is this idea that we are separate from source and how that like and then we identify with the negativity and then we believe that that's us, and then when we remember that we are directly connected to source, it actually starves those those things. And so it's just really a general understanding of what you feed will win, and
Exactly.
and just to allow that to happen. And also shadow work, this is a wonderful time to do shadow work. Just going to do a little self promo. Shamanism and Your Shadow, coming out February 2025 by Granddaughter Crow. You can buy it wherever you get your favorite books. I just had to throw that in because you said the shadow. So my ego was like, hey, this is a wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But this is rich because the concepts that you were talking about, it looks just so beautiful, and then it's like, wait, what did you just say? And then it's like reawakening. I'm like, oh yeah, the atom. Oh, wait, what did, no, I'm not going to look to the past. I'm going to stay present. And this like surrender
Yeah.
is what I'm experiencing in that. And I think you talk about the surrender in your book as well. Tell us a little bit more about surrender.
Whew, this is powerful. So as human beings, when we react to the outside world, when we're operating through fear, we're resisting, we're reacting, we're not surrendered. Surrendering is the joining of two wills, the all that is and one's individual will. You do that, you let go of the oars, you stop swimming against the current, and you will become aware and align with a force the likes of which the potentials are beyond words. And it's a state of just letting go. So what you're doing is you're aware of who you are relative to source. You realize there's no separation, so you let go and you trust the process. I'll be the first one to say faith and trust have to be cultivated. And people say, well, how do I cultivate that? How do I do that? Briefly look back and look at the times you were in a very sticky situation and a way somehow was made. Remember that.
Audience,
Just
your
use
inner healer. And let me give you the subtitle because I haven't done that yet. Using chakras and energy medicine to achieve wholeness. I love that. The
thank you.
wholeness. I absolutely love that. Julia, before we say farewell to the audience for now, um, is there anything that you would like to share beyond what we've talked about?
Absolutely. I would just want to remind everyone that start becoming an observer of not only your inside world but the outer world, because there is no clarity, there is no really understanding when we focus on the outer world. What we see is the unconsciousness playing out, and it's going to get a little darker and probably a little louder, but it's a reminder to come back to the strength, to the peace, to the clarity of inner stillness. Go within, practice observing, and start speaking, thinking, vibrating, embodying the world you want to live in, who you want to be. Do that now. Don't wait, and allow that to unfold. Practicing, cultivating the faith and trust. Those are forces. Faith and trust are not just words; they're forces. And when you bring energy and attention and awareness to them, they can literally shift mountains for you. So that's my message: is fear not, remember who you are, and remember the present moment really is all there ever is.
Yeah. And it's so rich. Julio, thank you so much for being on this show. It has been mind blowing, and it's almost like, oh, I remember this concept. Oh, I think I knew that somewhere deep inside of me. I absolutely love it. I love it, love it, love it. Follow Giulio Consiglio on Instagram, just at Giulio Consiglio. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. I'll drop some messages here. If you are listening to this on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Like, think about somebody who is going through something and maybe could use a dose of Giulio Consiglio's wisdom and reminding us to be present, to be aware of our subtle body, to observe your thoughts, and to create a wonderful world on purpose. So, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciated this time.
Granddaughter Crow, you are so gracious and kind. I can't even begin to thank you for this conversation, the synchronicities that were just unfolding. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
I love it. Again, thanks for watching another episode of Belief Being and Beyond. Love ya. See you all in the flippity flip.